We're going through One Piece with the last couple weeks, taking in all of the news and revelations and delay tactics that we've had to deal with. A thought suddenly struck my mind, and that was that we've actually been comparing the Straw Hats to the wrong crew and maybe using the wrong crew model for most of the series. It sounds really weird because in many ways, the Straw Hats are essentially their own crew model, but if we look really closely throughout most of One Piece, they're actually being compared to one specific crew, and I think it's the wrong one. So follow me on this journey as we go forth to try and find what the Straw Hats should actually look like and who made a better comparison for them. First things first, let's get this straight. The Roger Pirates are very clearly always used as the comparison for the Straw Hats. It's used in almost every major arc, whether that is just characters comparing Luffy to Roger or straight up sometimes trying to compare the Monster Trio to his primary trio or just the crew in general. But there is a flaw with this. This flaw has been present for a while. It's not exactly a new thing, but it is interesting to see how it has gotten worse over time, and Oda seems very unwilling to try and fix it. This problem is primarily the usefulness of the whole crew, and the reason for that is really simple. We've basically now been pretty much confirmed that the whole of the Roger Pirates were not actually all that useful. Instead, when it came to both power and utility, most of the time the Roger Pirates relied on their monster trio, which was Roger, Rayleigh, and Gabon. But for many reasons, this is a bad model. It is an incredibly bad model, and I know an outside reason why this exists, but put a pin in that for a minute, because this is just such a bad model to really use for a crew strength analysis, because basically you're really looking at the fact that only 3 members of no matter how large your crew is are the only ones actually pulling their weight. And yeah, some people are going to come at me and say, but we don't know that the rest of the Roger Pirates weren't strong, we just know those 3 were the strongest. And while I understand that point of view, it really doesn't matter, because very unfortunately Oda has spent no time developing the rest of the Roger Pirates and very much has spent a lot of his time building up another pirate crew who would have been a better model format, the Rocks Pirates. This idea has more going for it than just power, but that is obviously a consideration of it. When you look at the Rocks Pirates, you just get an instant sense of chills at looking at how strong the whole crew was. Yes, they had heavy hitters on the upfront, Whitebeard, Big Mom, Shiki, and Kaido, but there were plenty of others that were probably very close, if not equal in power to them. You had Buckingham Stussy, whose whole power set we still don't fully understand. Gloriosa, a literal Empress of Amazon Lily, is present, and well as other characters who essentially were rivals for some of these characters, like how Silverax was a rival for Shiki and he was drawn into the crew. There's a whole thing about just how strong this entire configuration really is. Now, am I saying that I want the Straw Hats to be like the Rocks Pirates? No, I am not. I love the friendship and family aspect of the Straw Hats, and I want that to be the core aspect. But what I am saying is that no matter what Straw Hat shows up at a situation, it should feel like an earth tremor at this stage. That scene when the Rocks Pirates first arrive at God Valley, that should be the moment anytime the Straw Hats show up for all of them. There's like a whole line of conversation that I've seen online about how disappointing the Straw Hats tend to feel, primarily because they don't tend to radiate this sense of aura or accomplishment when you see them. Yeah, we get some aura farming from Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji, and that's about it, and that's not even consistent across all 3 or in every single part of the story. I mean, it's important to remember that there are 10 members of this crew, but you wouldn't know it all the time, especially because in later arcs, it feels like we spend a lot more time with other characters. Carrot, Yamato, Loki, and they're all starting to feel like they're going to start surpassing and replacing our current Straw Hats, and yeah, that's kind of a problem because our current Straw Hats are an Emperor crew. And despite the fact that technically they have taken down Emperors, they didn't really feel like they could do it on their own. You gotta remember that Kid and Law did a big lift with taking care of Big Mom. That's not something that any of the crew possibly could have handled while they were on Wano on their own. And that's kind of even more importantly taken into consideration because look at the fact that a lot of the top lieutenants had to be taken down by outside characters. Simple fact of the matter is that while I do believe there should be a lot of teamwork within the Straw Hats, and that could even be its own section of logic, because let's be honest, it's not like the Straw Hats work together a lot, which I do think they should. There is just this thing about the fact that whenever any of the Straw Hats pull up to a situation, yes, even Usopp, there should be an undeniable feeling that you would need to be at least like commander class in the Navy or a higher end Toby Ropo just to begin to feel like you could keep up with them, and even then it should feel stronger. Should all of the Straw Hats be able to fight King and Queen? Not necessarily, but I feel like if you put 2 Straw Hats up against King or Queen, that should be a decided battle, or at least very, very close. There's also a question of, does this mean there can't be weak characters on the Straw Hats? There's always been an essence of the Straw Hats being a family, therefore the power or utility of its members didn't matter as much. But let's not delude ourselves. Everybody in Straw Hat's crew is special. All of them come from a special lineage, they have special origins, they have special powers. Let's not delude ourselves into thinking saying that this is a ragtag ordinary crew. They are descended from master swordsmen, royals, gods, you do name it, they pretty much come from it, and so that's not like we're going to make the case argument, but they're just ordinary people trying to make their way in the world, because they're not at this point. And you could also make the case argument, well, Oda might develop the Roger Pirates, and if he does, that would be cool, but at this point, he's done too much aura farming for the Rocks Pirates, and it's too much of a well-equaled crew for me to not look at it and go, oh, that should actually be the Straw Hats format, with the thing that would make them successful just being their family bond. So you go ahead and let me know, do you like this idea? Do you think all of the Straw Hats should be on an equal footing? And if you do, what power-ups do you think they should all have? If you liked the video, you know all the good YouTube stuff to do, and I'll talk to you next time.